That would be awesome. It's a live stream. You start it? Okay. Cool. All right. Apparently we're live. They live stream everything in here. Isn't that cool? Right there.
Close.
Working, but then it wasn't there when I started talking. Oops.
This one for now, and then if it persists, unfortunately, but let me test.
Hello? Okay, well, that works.
Do you want?
Okay,
I'll put it up a little. What mic is that? 5.
5. Okay. All right, sorry about that. How's the volume? There's not that many folks here. Good? Okay, sorry, this is awkward. You got the mic with hold a hand, and I got the.
Let's go. Switch back to
I'm gonna go with the weird Secret Service thing. I think we're good. That's a little bit loud. All right. All right. Well, thank you for coming. I'm Damon. Sorry for the awkward technical difficulties. Thank you for coming to Startup Grind. It's an organization that started in Silicon Valley almost 10 years ago. And we've had the Austin chapter for probably 5 or 6 years. I've been doing it for about 2.5 years. I'm the managing director. And basically the idea is we want to educate, connect, and inspire entrepreneurs in our community. There are 500 chapters around the world. And pretty much at least one in every country in the world. But we're blessed here in Austin to have a facility like this, so thank you to Capital Factory for having us here, and great folks like Preston who are in our community who will come and take their time and share with us their experiences, their stories, things we can learn from them. So that's kind of why we do this. We want to meet each other, but we also want to learn from those who have kind of been there and done some things. And I get a chance to ask questions for a little while, and then you guys get a chance to ask questions as well. Let's say we missed something that you want to cover, you'll have your opportunity, and we'll also get to talk to Preston more afterwards too. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Egan Nelson is a sponsor of this. They're a law firm. If you're looking for startup counsel, they're a great law firm here in Austin area and some other cities as well. So I can hook you up with them if anyone is looking for a startup attorney. All right, well, welcome.
Thank you. I'm ready.
Whoa, and we have stage lighting.
Yeah. That was really showtime, right?
Yeah, now it's showtime.
Yeah, showtime. Gotta sit up.
And Preston has a couple of decades at Dell, right? And some time at the University of Texas as an entrepreneur in residence, mentor, angel investor, and now he runs Div Inc. And we're going to talk about that, what that is, and how it came to be, and all that. But that's a real quick bio. But we'll go into more of your background and kind of how you got to where you are. So if you would, yeah, I mean, if you wouldn't mind just starting with kind of where you come from, you know, the basics of, you know, what. Yeah, kind of how, you know, what's your origin story? Where do you come from, and kind of how does that influence who you are today?
Okay. So very quickly, some of you may or may not know, but I am actually a native New Yorker. So I was born and raised in New York. New Yorkers? Okay. We have no football teams or baseball. Well, you know, Yankees are doing it pretty good, but we don't really have any teams worth talking about right now, so we're just going to skip that part. So I was born and raised in New York, half in the Bronx, New York, and then my family moved out to the suburban area of Rockland County, which is on the other side of the Hudson River. And then I went to school in Washington, D.C., went to Howard University, which was a predominantly African-American university in the D.C. area. And then thereafter, I majored in mechanical engineering, so I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, but I've never done any mechanical engineering, period. And we'll talk about that a little bit. And then shortly after I graduated from college, I had, you know, a really interesting family situation that happened. So my mother passed away right when I was getting ready to graduate. And so my father had already passed 10 years before that, right? So when I was 13, my mother passed right before I graduated. So that kind of turned my world sort of upside down, because I had a younger sister as well. And but I always remembered my mom was like, you need to get your college degree. You know how that goes, right? Get your college degree. So took some incompletes, came back, finished off the semester, finished off the curriculum, and then graduated. So I didn't have my act together, to say the least, but I just, you know, made my way into, you know, to the tech world, if you will. And I'm going to share this story with you. I haven't shared this one with you. So my first real job after I got out of college was with a small company called Quantum Computer Services, and it was like one of those online chat services early.
Like a CompuServe kind of a thing?
Yeah, exactly. So we were a CompuServe competitor.
Dating myself, but go ahead.
We're both dating ourselves, so shh, you know. But I was a young guy when I was working up at that company, so, you know, give me, you know. But anyway, so I was with that company, but I started off in customer service. I had a mechanical engineering degree, working in customer service, making $16,000. It's like embarrassing, you know? And so I was, you know, constantly pushing to try to get a raise, you know? So I got this little, you know, $2,000 raise to move up a little bit. And then I started going down the hall to the marketing VP, you know, say, hey, you know, Steve, you know, what you got going on, you know, give me, you know, a spot. So I was talking about getting a spot. I got this other job offer that gave me about 8 to 10K, you know, raise. I said, okay, well, I'm gonna go back and see if I can get an equal raise. They didn't come to the table, but they did come to the table with some white paper that said, hey, sign this paper and, you know, some good stuff with the company. And I was like, okay, cool. Or I can go to this other company and get an $8,000, $10,000 raise. So I went with the other company. Boy, you're talking about hard lessons. So let me tell you, the guy that was the marketing VP, let's see if you guys know this name. His name was actually Steve Case. You guys know Steve Case?
Founder of AOL.
You guys heard America? I mean, we're kind of dating it, right? So he ended up becoming the CEO of America Online, right? And so America Online, shares, they got sold, blah, blah, blah. I missed out on that opportunity. So if I had stayed, I wouldn't be here with you guys today. I'd be in New Zealand somewhere, right? Kick back. So that was like a wow, interesting thing. So I got a chance to talk to Steve Case, at South by a couple of years ago, and I told him my story. He ruined the story by telling me, "Oh, Preston, you left too early." And I was like, "No shit." But you don't have to ruin my story. I'm trying to tell you the story. So, that was really, so that was really interesting for me. I did go on and, a really good job, had a good career with that company, left, and I got, a couple of friends of mine said, "Hey, we want to bring you over to Dell." And that was in 1993. So Dell was relatively a young, fast-growing company. And so I didn't make the same mistake twice. So I stayed with Dell, which was the best performing stock for the decade of, of the 1990s. So I rode that nice wave. And so from 93 to 2014, I was with Dell. Dell took me from Washington, D.C. to Atlanta, Georgia, and then here to Austin, Texas. Austin was supposed to be a 2-year stop because in 1997, Austin wasn't really happening. So I was going to go back to Atlanta where, they just had the Olympics and everything else, right? So I'm like, Atlanta was the place to be, but I never made it back. And so, my career at Dell was IT technology, consulting, and sales. So what I shared with Damon was that it gave me a great perspective of a variety of different IT technology challenges across a variety of different businesses and industries, which I think really gave me a strong platform for moving into, the startup scene later. So my stepping stone into the startup scene was my last year at Dell in 2013. I became the managing director for the Global Center for Entrepreneurship at Dell, which was sort of a new initiative for Dell to kind of build their brand and sell their technology solutions to small, medium businesses and startups. So I had to help build that organization up with the EIR they had at Dell, who was a brilliant young lady who was just knocking doors down. And that experience right there, for me, really reopened my eyes to what true innovation was, right? You had these startup founders that were just doing this amazingly creative, innovative stuff, and it was exciting, and they were building businesses, and I was trying to help them leverage technology to help them scale and grow and make deals to leverage Dell resources and executives. I was like, man, this is probably the best damn job at Dell, right? And a lot of people thought so too. And so, it was like, okay, this is really where I would prefer to be. I would rather be in this. So an opportunity came up where Dell offered sort of like early leave packages. And never before had Dell done that here in Austin, in the US. And so long story short, I took that package because my wife told me to. She said, it's your time to leave. You've been looking at doing something different. Now is your time. Take the package and go figure it out. So I left with no job lined up. I didn't know what I was going to do. And then I got invited to become a mentor here at Capital Factory. The EIR at Dell told me I should become an angel investor. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll look at it, but you don't know how much money I have, so why are you telling me to become an angel investor? And so, but her reasoning to me was really interesting because she was really a pro-woman, advocate in the startup world, right, as a startup founder herself. And she said to me, in all my 20 years in being in the startup world, I have never come across a black angel investor. And this was 2014. So I was like, so I wanted to call her BS on that. And I was like, I'm gonna go home and check this out. So I went home, I did some research, and in 2014, I was only able to find 10 publicly known African-American angel investors in all of the United States. And I thought that was crazy. I thought that was really crazy. So I said, okay, well, sign me up. I'm gonna try to do this thing. And so I just started, becoming a mentor here. So I was seeing a lot of deal flow and, getting to know the startup scene. And then I started doing angel investing. So I was a member of CTAN, which is the Central Texas Angel Network here. So I saw a lot of deal flow there. So I was seeing a lot of deal flow. And what I was not seeing was I was not seeing a lot of people of color, and I was not seeing a lot of women in the space. So I thought that was a little bit problematic, especially, and I can tell you why later, so we'll get to that. But anyway, then that sort of led to the UT EIR position, which was kind of shocking in itself. They were like, we would like for you to be our EIR. I said, well, it says entrepreneur in resident. I have never done entrepreneurship. I've never started a business before, so you guys okay with this? And they're like, you're exactly what we need. You got corporate experience, you're a mentor, angel investor, you're driving diversity and inclusion, and you have this vast experience. I said, okay, I'll do it. Hook 'em horns, I had to get used to doing that, right? And so it was a great experience, and ultimately, all of this experience led me to really, truly understand the challenges that people of color and women were having as startup founders in the community. And I just thought I was in a unique position to really help solve and close that gap, because I had been on the investor side, I've been a mentor, and I have a whole network of founders who were already coming to me, and I had a good understanding of what they needed, had great relationships with Capital Factory and Techstars, and so I thought, okay, let's put something together that helps close this gap, not just from the startup perspective, but also from the community perspective. So that's when I started DivInc in 2016. So I'm going to stop there. That's a long intro.
That's great. You got us there, all
Thank
the way
you.
to DivInc.
DivInc.
So what, I guess, what were some of the challenges that you identified that they were having? And the
In a
genesis of
nutshell,
DivInc,
what
where did it
came
come
down
from?
to was that it really comes down to really, in simple terms, a lack of access, right? And a lack of access to education and know-how, right? Lack of access to mentors and a network, a lack of access to, obviously, capital, right? And it's really, so I'm gonna give you this example when I talk about the network, right? So Jason Seats was the managing director for Techstars here in Austin. Techstars, as you know, is a global tech startup accelerator. We were at an event like this with the Black Chamber. There was a young gentleman who was a startup founder, and he and Jason met. Jason really kind of liked him. So Jason said later that he went to LinkedIn to connect with him and realized they had no common connections. In Austin? How do they not know any of the same people? So Jason was sort of blown away by that, and he shared that story with me, and I was like, duh. I said, that's the problem. I said, this is one of the brightest ones right here. And I said, there's a whole bunch of them that you haven't even met yet. And so he was like, okay, this is crazy. And I was like, yeah, Jason. I mean, it's almost like, yeah, you now got it. Now you understand the lack of, there's not the same network. And for women, it's pretty much the same thing. And so, so that's the network piece. And if you're not connected to the right mentors and the talent and everything else, it's hard to really build a team and get the guidance and the leadership that you need to kind of be successful. Because startup entrepreneurship is hard. It's hard as hell. Most of y'all would know it's hard as hell. And you can't do it alone, right? And so that was one piece. And then the education piece, I mean, I just ran into, here's another story, right? As an angel investor, I saw a lot of deal flow, as I mentioned. Here's what I saw. White guys in general, no offense or anything, right? White guys in general coming here, knocking it out, in general, right? People of color and women were here. Gap was like this. And I was like, damn, this is crazy. Why is this gap existing? Right? And people of color would get upset with me because I wouldn't write them a check. But I had to stop and explain why I was not writing the check. Right? Because you don't have this, you don't have that. Why don't you have these things? Because they don't know. And I was like, well, we gotta fix this. Then another thing that I heard was from some of the leaders was that, people of color are not showing up. They're not coming. But our doors are wide open for everybody. I said, okay, so just because your doors are wide open doesn't mean folks are gonna come through. Your culture, right, and what people see when they walk through the door, even as simple as how they're greeted, makes a difference, right? And so on the flip side, I would talk to women and people of color. They're like, I didn't feel wanted. I didn't feel like I belonged there, right? On top of the fact that their environment is kind of intimidating. You hear people talk about cap tables and, other stuff I can't even, my Christmas break is still on my brain, so a lot of things haven't come back yet. But, you talk about, all the specific things that you need, a product market fit, right? Life cycle costs and, client acquisition costs. What? Now, I came in here as a mentor. I didn't know what the hell people were talking about. But I was brave enough to say, all right, yeah, that sounds good. Go home, Google it, got it, come back, and they would throw another term at me. Cap table, oh shit, okay, let me go look at that. Come back, I'm good, right? Oh, Pastor, you need to talk to a family office. Lie to you not. When I heard family office, I thought it was like some medical shit. Oh, family office? Why would I want to talk to a family office if it's a bunch of doctors and stuff like that? Let me not say that out loud, right? So I go home and research family office. I'm like, oh, damn, right? So then I try to sound very brilliant to my peers. Do you know what a family office is? No, I don't know what that is. Oh, you don't know what family office is? Right? But these are terms and stuff that just didn't know. But if you're in this environment, other startup environments, they throw those terms around like it's nothing. That's intimidating, right? And so combine that with, you don't see people that look like you, and the culture it's not really welcoming, and then you got these terms flying around. Yeah, of course they're not gonna be there. So what do we do about that? You know what I mean? So I said, okay, well, look, I'm in a very unique position, as an angel investor, mentor, and with these founders. How do I help close this gap? And I just figured it had to be, something we can do. So I told Damon my first venture to try to solve that problem was to start an angel investment group. Right? We called it E3 Angel Network. Empower, Excel, and something else. Like I said, vacation is still washing on my brain, so I can't remember that. But I made a couple of mistakes with the Angel Network very quickly. One, I didn't quite have the right team. So you guys know about startup teams, right? Got to have a good team. And the second thing was I tried to amass a group of investors solely as people of color. And there's not a critical mass of people of color angel investors in Austin. Definitely not in 2014, 2015. So that went down. But the value that came out of that, as when I became an angel investor, that's when I started seeing these pitches coming in, and that's when I realized that gap existed, and that's when I realized, oh, we need to do, even if we had money, the problem is there are a lot of founders that are not even ready to get to that level. So we need to fix that gap so that we can get to that next level. Not everybody, but in general, right? And so that's when we came up with the programmatic startup accelerator specifically for people of color and women. And what was interesting is I didn't know this, was that was the first one in the state of Texas that was focused on those demographics. I was shocked. I was really, really shocked. And then I became proud after the fact, right? It was like, damn, I mean, surely this is being done. It had been done in other states, but like one in San Francisco, one in New York, right? One maybe in Florida. That's pretty much it. So I thought I was just catching up. In actuality, we were pretty much on the, I guess, kind of sort of on the front end. So that's Div Inc., if you will.
And when you founded it, you were telling me about some statistics of, women in startups and people of color in startups. The numbers were extremely low in terms of founders as well. Like, you were saying it was something like less than 10%, less than 1 in 10 founders were people of color.
Another piece of my motivation for Div Inc. was interesting. I was doing some research, and there was some data that came back from the 2012 census, small business census and all that, right? So it was crazy. I was looking through it, and it said, and I'm just going to use this as an example, but I can break it down for like African American, Latina, Asian, non-minority groups. But for the African American, they were about 2.6 million African American owned businesses in the United States, right? Only 4% of them had employees, right? Think about that. 2.6 million companies, only 4% had employees, right? And I was like, okay, that's kind of low. And then all the way on the other side, right, for the Asian and non-minority businesses, they were like, their numbers were 22% had employees and 24% had employees. Still not a high number, but the disparity between the two was crazy. But even more so, I said, okay, well, maybe that's not just a big deal. Let me look at the average revenue of the companies. Average revenue for the companies without these employees for African American was $58,000. $58,000. On the other end of the spectrum, you're looking at like 1.2 million. I was like, okay, that's kind of a problem, right? And then when you looked at companies with employees, there was a little bit more parity across the board. So what that told me was that, well, if you build companies that can scale and hire employees, you will generate more revenue. I mean, it's not linearly, but for the most part, it was showing a linear path. You build scalable companies, hire employees, you generate more revenue. The parity actually decreases a little bit across the board. So I'm like, okay, well, damn, that's what we need to be doing. We need to be building more companies that are scalable, right, that create jobs, right, which in turn, if you get an exit, a little bit of wealth, but not everybody does that, right? But we can create some wealth and generate revenue, right? Which is great for the communities and great for the households. So that was sort of a voila moment, right? And then you could look at the numbers for Latinos as well. They're a little bit better than African-American numbers, but African-American numbers were sort of on the bottom, and that was pretty disheartening for me. But then pretty disheartening across the board. Another statistic was African American women own more than half of all African American businesses. But their businesses have 3% of their companies have employees. So I was like, oh man, this is like a serious uphill thing, right? And then it's, the Latino number is a little bit better than that, but the fastest growing are African American women and Latino women. In all of the United States, African American women, Latino women are the fastest growing entrepreneur segments in the United States, followed by women in general. So for me, it's not just, oh, this is a cool thing to do in the startup scene. There is a underlying theme of job creation, innovation, and wealth creation, generational wealth creation over time that is part of this, which is not just good for these communities, but it's good for the U.S. economy as a whole. Because if we enable and empower these groups, what does that do for our economy? It's awesome. So that's what I'm trying to get to. But I'll be old, dead, and gone before that happens. But I got to try now, right? So that's the.
So DivInc, so where are you located? And if someone goes through DivInc, what do they experience? Like, what's the setup of the program, and what are the components to it?
Yeah, so it's a 12-week program. If you have friends or family and anybody, it's basically a 12-week program. They get best practice workshops on a weekly basis. They also get mentoring on a weekly basis. They get we do community networking events, so they're able to expand their network very significantly. And then we also do pitch coaching as well. And then there are a couple other elements that are unique. Well, not necessarily unique, but we do have what we call KPI sessions, which essentially drive focus for the founders, because focus seems to be, a challenge for a lot of founders. This is hard, right? Because you get a lot of things coming at you. And then the other thing that we do is we really build this unique culture of support for our founders, where we're really able to allow them to let their guard down. So I don't know if many of you know this, but for many people of color and women, it's a thing about having to always be on. We have to be on. And it's almost like we can't ever really turn it off when we're out, right? And that can be exhausting. But we're used to it though, right? But we have to be on. With startup entrepreneurship being as hard it is and as lonely of a journey as it is can be, we allow entrepreneurs to let their hair down, take the armor off, and be vulnerable. And as a result of that vulnerability, there is this culture of support that's built within the DivInc family, if you will, to help uplift each other, put the armor back on, and go back out there and do your thing, right? And we do that on a weekly basis. So you'll hear us talk about DivInc family, and that is why, because at the end of the day, that's what we're building, that family of support. So folks who've been in our program 3 years ago are still coming back to say, hey, I just need to talk. I just need somebody to listen to me, and I'm having this going on, that going on, and that's important for us, because that addresses the part of feeling welcome and feeling like they belong. That's what we do. So all of that comes together, and then at the end of 12 weeks, we do our demo day, which is really kind of pretty awesome. They're ready to go off, they've got their product market fit, their initial product market fit, they're getting their initial customers, and they're off and and running. After that, once they leave, they become part of our alumni program, and they get additional support over the next 12 to 18, 24 months in terms of how we help them connect to potential customers, partners, and investors, which is a critical period for entrepreneurs in general. But we're constantly looking to build those networks, right? Because they're very, very critical to the success of any entrepreneur, but especially for us. And so that's kind of, in essence, what we do. And let me say this too. Jason knows this, Damon knows this, several of you may or may not know. Even though DivInc is specifically, exclusively for people of color and women, everyone is welcome. Right, let me say that. As mentors, right, as investors, as collaborators, as allies, it's inclusive collaboration. So with DivInc, we work with Mass Challenge, Techstars, Capital Factory, WeWork, everyone, because it's about inclusion, right? Now, granted, we won't have white males in our cohort, but that doesn't stop them from participating or supporting any of the founders that we have in our program, right? So for me, you'll never see me do this exclusive thing, because at the end of the day, diversity and innovation pretty much go hand in hand, right? And so you're looking for talent, we're looking for mentors and networks all coming together. We have to do it together, right? And the more diversity I think we have, the greater the innovation of our community. And I honestly believe that Austin has a very unique opportunity to become probably the most diverse tech startup community in the United States. I believe that because of the leaders here can make that happen. They're starting to embrace it. It's been tough, but I think folks are learning and they're starting to embrace it. If we can get it right, Austin can go a long way in terms of really setting the example across the board. And that diversity is not just gender and you know, person's color of their skin, right? You got LGBTQ, there's a whole lot of diversity that we're talking about. Our focus happens to be on these demographic groups, but it's all encompassing. So.
How can they embrace it? How can the leaders in Austin embrace it more so? What can they do?
I'm sorry, say it again.
What can the leaders in Austin do to embrace it? You're saying that you're starting to see some of that. What would you like to see more of?
So I think there needs to be, which is starting to happen, a few things. One is recognizing the fact that, you know, or really understanding and recognizing the fact that do you actually have a culture that welcomes diversity, equity, inclusion? Right, start there. And if you don't, what can you do to build that culture? And it's really, really interesting. So one thing I would say is you look at the leadership team, right? Look at the leadership team of any organization. And I'll tell you, I've seen some and I'm like, wow, there is 7 white guys and 2 white women. That's tough. You know, what else is on the leadership team, right? Because I would tell you a lot of you know, my peers, we'll go to the website and we'll look at the leadership team. And if I don't see me, hear me, I'm like, I don't stop there, but I'm like, you know, that's not good. What else they got going on? Now, maybe your business talks to diversity, equity, inclusion. Not just, oh, we're a diverse company. No. What are the things that you do? Whether it's community, whether it's internal, what are those things that you do? So you have to call those out and be like very intentional in calling those out if you want that environment, right? And so like here in Capital Factory. I think, they're clearly hosting more events that are inclusive of multiple demographics, right? Which I think is great. Just, what, in 2014, 2015, you would not see a Black Tech Summit here, a Latino Tech Summit, LGBT, women, none of that was happening here, right? And it's happening because people are basically, they're having a dialogue now about what can be done. How do we build a culture that moves in the right direction? Now, granted, having events for a lot of people is like, checkbox, okay, they did that. Again, it kind of goes back to the culture. Yes, they had events here, but if I go upstairs, how do I feel? I'm just using that as an example, right? So leaders, and this is what I'm going to share with you. One of my peers, new friends, if you will, really kind of threw this at me, and he said, what really needs to happen is we need more of the unexpected messenger. And who's the unexpected messenger? White guys. Right? And I was like, damn, that's interesting. I never thought about it that way, but yes, we do need more of the leaders to step up and say, yeah, I'm about this, right? I want to make a change. Because when one steps up, then another steps up, then another steps up. So you have folks like Damon and Jason and Dan Graham and Josh Jones Dilworth and several others who are stepping up and saying, yeah, this is important to us. We may not know what the hell to do, but this is important to us. So we want to help. We want to figure this out. If you're leaders of a startup company, you need to do that, and you need to be intentional. As the leader, you need to be intentional and say that. And it's okay, right? This is the other thing he taught me. He didn't teach me, but he was sort of sharing his perspective, which I think is really appreciative. He's like, sometimes you might ask us to come and speak on behalf of diversity, equity, inclusion. He said, I will tell you, it's a scary thing because some of us are afraid to say the wrong thing. And I was like, I get it, but I already know that you might say the wrong thing, right? Because you might not know what to say. You might choose the wrong words. But what I shared with Damon is if you have the right intention, if you're right intention, we have your back. So if you say, Pastor, I'm gonna do this thing, right? And you get up there and you say the wrong thing, and people start rumbling or whatever, I'm gonna step in. Or one of my peers is gonna step in and say, yo, hold on. I know what he said. It's not the way he meant it. He is down, right? And this is a learning process for all of us. Now, it might be flush red, it's okay. Live with it. We do that shit every day. Right? You just can't see that we're red. Am I right? We've been in situations, women have been in situations where it's just like, shit. But we do that all the time, and it's an uncomfortable feeling. That's the other thing we talk about, right? Well, it's uncomfortable. Try being uncomfortable every damn day. That's not a good feeling, right? If you can imagine that. And I can give you story upon story about this whole uncomfortable thing, right? I'll give you three really, really quick. One, we had a event right here, and we asked a VC, a white VC, to be part of this panel. And the panel topic was the elephant in the room. So essentially, how come, people of color are not getting investment? on the day before the event, when he saw the panel was predominantly black, it was the Black Tech Summit. Right? It was a Black Tech Summit, so they're going to be predominantly black people in the room and on the panel. He wanted to back out. Not only did he want to back out, he wanted to replace himself with another black person who was very charismatic and very sharp and an entrepreneur, a really great guy. I was like, we need you on the stage as the unexpected messenger. But his fear overcame his desire to be the unexpected messenger. So he dropped off. But lo and behold, he was sitting right there during the panel. I was like, well, damn, you came, but you couldn't be on the panel. So that's one story. The other story was I was visiting in Israel, and I went over into West Bank. And I got asked to do a pitch for Dell, which I was not prepared to do, but being Dell, 20 years, I'm always prepared, right? So I started doing this pitch, and it's very interesting because you have the dynamic of, do you say West Bank, Gaza, Palestine, and so I wasn't prepped for that particular piece, but I knew all the terminology, so I said, okay, I'm gonna pick one. And I don't remember which one I picked. I picked the wrong one, apparently, right? I picked the wrong one, and a room full, and this woman stood up and said, excuse me, I can't let you go any further, right? And she checks me up, like in front of everybody. And she was really stern about it, right? And so all I could do was apologize, right? And then some of my peers, kind of said, okay, try to brace it a little bit, and I kept on. So afterwards, I tried to talk to her and let her know, it was a learning experience for me, but I got protected per se, right? And not only by my peers, but others in the audience who came to me and apologized for the way she attacked me during that pitch, right? So yeah, I was way out of my comfort zone, but I got that protection. That's okay, right? I said I had a third story, but I'm not gonna do that one because I can't remember. So, we need folks to step up and be the unexpected messenger, to show up and just be supportive. Because I think as we do that, your peers say it's okay, and they step in. And then slowly but surely, which is what we have seen as part of Diving being in Austin, is the community begins to grow and starts to embrace the diversity of our entire startup community. And it's funny because a lot of people were like, well, and you heard when people were doing these diversity initiatives in the startup scene, they were like, we're gonna change the face of entrepreneurship. That's scary for a white guy. I get that. Or we're gonna, do whatever face of entrepreneurship. We're not trying to change the face of entrepreneurship per se. We're not trying to, in other words, we're not trying to displace anybody. What it is we're trying to make it broader, by making it more inclusive, right? If we bring more people, more talent, more capabilities, more innovation, we make it bigger, we make it inclusive, we make it more successful through that diversity. And so maybe does the face of entrepreneurship change? It changes by becoming more diverse, but nobody gets displaced. That's not what it's about. It's about broadening and making it more inclusive and making it more successful at the end of the day.
Awesome. That's a good place to leave it, I think, and we'll turn it over to the audience, but I just want to say thank you very much for the chat.
Oh, shit.
It's been good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Hang it over to there.
All right, I'm going to
All right.
hand this weird thing around. Anybody have a question they want to go forward with to start?
I did, yeah.
All right, hold that one. And
Hold this one.
There you
Is
go.
this good enough here? So What resonated for me very early in your talk was the moment you talked about Dell had the package, they'd never done it before, and your wife said it's your time. For, when you talk about how lonely the journey can be as a startup, how does that significant relationship or that significant ally kind of help that, I guess what we call escape velocity to really step into that new and uncharted territory? How does that, did that mean something for you? Did you feel something like that when your wife said, it's your time, go do this?
My wife did not know, what that meant, right? I mean,
Right. But just the buy-in. I know it's something. I don't know what it is, but it's your time. Go try it.
To go do something.
Go do something.
Yeah. I mean, it was a really wild experience because when she said it's time to go, she literally walked out the house, got in her car, and drove away. There was no discussion, right? And I think she understood deep down that I needed to do something else that I was going to be passionate and that I loved. I had no idea what that was going to be, but she was going to be supportive of that, and it took me a while to figure it out. So I'm really, blessed and thankful for my wife to allow me to spend 4 years to figure it out. And, it has allowed me to really grow as a person, because I would tell you, DivInc is by far the hardest thing that I've ever done professionally. And I would not change it, for the world, but damn, that shit is hard, right? And then you have little proud moments. Like about a year and a half ago, my now 16-year-old said to me, "Dad, when you're done with DivInc, can I take it over?" I said, that's a done deal, right? So now I'm like, I got to stay on it for a little while. But that let me know that she's proud. You know how kids can be. That's her way of saying, "Dad, I'm proud of you, and I want to help take it over when you're done." So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. This chapter that I'm in right now, because I'm an older dude, is, I think, what's going to be my legacy for me, right? Dell was a great career, but this is the legacy work right here. So when I'm gone, I hope people remember this, a big part of this period in my life. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. I was just curious about just the experience you had with, okay, so my wife is saying go, but neither of us know what that is yet. But she's saying go. Yeah,
She should go.
Just curious of just how that resonated with you.
Yeah.
Like, what was that?
Yeah. I'm going to tell you a funny part very quickly. A funny part of I took a long time off. My first 6 months off, this is funny. I was actually on a stay-at-home mom schedule. So I want you to picture me in my warm-ups, running in the neighborhood, waving to moms across the street who were pushing baby carriages. Then afterwards, I was getting in my car and passing moms who were coming back from Starbucks, right? And I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I need to get off this schedule because I'm just interacting with too many women, and that's going to be problematic. People are going to start talking in the neighborhood. I saw Preston with your wife. I'm like, I need to get out of here. But it was funny. I was like, okay, but that experience gave me the experience of what the life was like for stay-at-home moms. So when I had entrepreneurs coming to me about stay-at-home moms and I was like, yeah, I get it. Oh, by the way, I have, 4 or 5 stay-at-home moms that you can talk to. And they're like, how do you know 4 or 5 stay-at-home moms? I was like, long story, but I got some hookups for you. You know what I mean? So it all comes together. Those 2 young ladies that are leaving are founders in DivInc, so I'm calling them out.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for sharing all that, Preston. You just said that this has been professionally the most challenging thing that you've ever done. You've shared a lot of the challenges. What from a macro level, like very high level, what would you say is the biggest challenge? Is it emotionally dealing with standing by entrepreneurs' side and coaching them? What is the biggest challenge?
Okay, I'm sorry. So what was the what? I'm sorry.
What's the biggest challenge that you would say, the hardest part about the change that you're trying or you're creating?
Yeah, that's a great question. So amazingly, the idea piece wasn't hard, right? I was remarkably able to find a team came together pretty quickly. I didn't know any of them, but we came together really quickly around this concept. And then we were off and running. So give you an example, we came together in March, right? We incorporated in June as a business, as a nonprofit business. July, we moved into Galvanize. In September, we launched the first accelerator program. So that part was like, whoop, really, really fast, right? And so we thought we were rolling. And then once we got into it, we really created a really strong program. But as a nonprofit, similar to a startup, we had to generate revenue. And so we thought that great product would let us raise money from corporations pretty easily, because here we are in the tech world, diversity, equity, and inclusion in tech, that's hot. So people will come running. That didn't happen. And so it was like, okay, we've got to really focus on fundraising. And this team was small and we were still building. So one of the most challenging things for me was I was such an intimate part of the programming as like a mentor and a coach, and I was participating in being there for entrepreneurs. I had to really start to push that away to go focus on fundraising. And I made a mistake and didn't do that 100%. I did it sort of part-time because I was still working with entrepreneurs. As a result of that, we didn't raise enough money to keep the team together. So I told Damon I lost my co-founder, my buddy, my accelerator program, COO, because we couldn't pay ourselves. And that hurt dearly. And a lot of people were like, oh, with Dana leaving, Div Inc. is probably not going to survive. And so that was sort of a, okay, slap in the face, get your stuff together, and let's get this thing turned around. How do we do it? We got the board in place. We put, our fundraising packages together, and I really essentially put 100% of the effort. Brought somebody on the team who was probably an angel that dropped in, who said, "Hey, I love to do fundraising. I love the organization. I'll do this on a volunteer basis until you can, able to pay me." So those things coming together really bought us enough time to raise the funds and get Div Inc. into a strong, stable position where right now, we're 3 years in. So that happened after the 18 months, right? So that 18-month point, was challenging. Here we are now at the three-year mark, and now we're looking at expanding the team, 2 more people, and then also potentially scaling to another city. And then, strategically, we're looking at trying to get an investment fund. So we're in that position because we had to really take a hard turn, shift, and bring the focus that we needed. And I had to let go kind of the accelerator piece and not participate as much in the accelerator so I can go do the fundraising. That was tough for me, right? Because if you're a founder of a startup for profit, you probably love the concept, love the business, love everything about the business, and you might hate fundraising, but you gotta go do it, and you gotta go do it full time, right? And you love this piece over here, right? So I don't know too many CEOs who go into a startup loving the fundraising piece. They love the business, what they're building, and they wanna do that as opposed to the fundraising, but you gotta shift gears, be the leader, and go do what you need to do so that the business can survive. So that was a really, really hard, losing co-founders, and then really almost have to go back to scratch and then shift my focus away from what I really love to something I'm okay doing. I can enjoy it, you know what I mean? So,
Well,
hope that helps.
thank you.
Hello? Oh, hey. I wanted to follow up a little bit. You mentioned about people, actually, I'm not sure if you meant like certain particular people or just like maybe founders that you know that were always on. And then, it's like Div Inc. was supposed to be a place where they could let their hair down. And I guess you were alluding to kind of like a, mental health within entrepreneurship, which is a very, very big thing. Or were you talking about maybe like a more professional always being on? It's like people ask you about your business. It's like, oh, I can't tell you, it's a secret. So I don't know, like which, or maybe all of them altogether. Can you elaborate more?
Probably, I never thought about it as a mental health wellness, but it kind of is indirectly because there's a lot of stress associated with those roles. And I can tell you, we've had, these little group meetings where people have just broken down and cried, right? Because whatever may be going on, right? They're carrying this tremendously extra load that maybe nobody knows about, and, it's just heavy, right? And you just give them an opportunity to just, put the load on the table for a minute. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I guess it could be a mental health and wellness thing. It is also an opportunity just to get some insight, different perspectives about maybe what you're doing and what you're facing from the business perspective. So it's sort of like a peer coaching, mentoring type of thing. And so yeah, it's kind of all of that rolled in. It just depends on what the give and take is, right? And when I talk about that letting the hair down, that includes myself as well as my partners on the team. So we can have stuff going on too, and we just, hey, this is what we're up against. You're not alone. You know what I mean? And they can help us, we can help them. So I think it's a good thing, and I think it's good for all entrepreneurs in general, but I know especially for our group, it's almost like a necessity. You know what I mean? Because it's a little bit lonelier because our networks are relatively limited in terms of people who look like us. And I'm not saying they always have to look like us, but we just need that comfort zone, that okay zone, that it's all right. You know what I mean? So, yeah. And that's a very, very important part of our program. And that is not to say that we're babying the founders. And I tell them that day one. Like, this is not a dumbed down version of anything. The expectations are actually higher. The expectations are actually higher. Because when people are looking from the outside in, case in point, our first demo day, I had somebody come up to me and say, that was great. Those companies, those founders are really good. And I said, thank you. And it just sat in here with me for a long time. And the reason being was that I asked myself, what was that person's expectations? Were they low? I don't know. But what they said to me made me feel like their expectations were low when they came in. And they were surprised. So when we went to the second cohort, I said, I'll be damned. Right? That wasn't a one-time thing. We're gonna come back stronger than the next one, right? Like, damn, those companies are really good. That time I said, no shit, Sherlock, right? But so, you know, the expectations are like, look, you coming out of here, we cannot be playing around. You represent DivInc, you represent me, you represent you represent the people who are coming behind you. So you need to step your game up, like big time. And people be like, oh, damn, right? So, you know, don't come here and think it's some dumbed down, easy version just because the program is a nonprofit and it's free and we're not taking equity. We are gonna whoop your ass just like anybody else is gonna whoop your butt. Because that's where you need to be. That's like I'm talking to my children, but yeah, wow, get on it. But no, I'm not abusive. Next question. Great question, though.
So a few years back, I was the PR lead at a little company called Lucid Chart out of Utah. Now, Utah, you may know, is not exactly the most diverse place in the world. I don't know that you could find a more homogenous tech scene anywhere in the country. But I found myself, nonetheless, on the diversity committee for this company, and our job was to bring actionable recommendations to the executive team. And it was really tough coming up with anything actionable. There were some things we could do, like we could put forward spokespeople for the company who were diverse, and we could encourage them to go out and speak and to, you know, wear their Lucid gear when they were speaking at industry events and conferences and whatnot. But beyond that, it was really hard for us to come up with recommendations we could give the executive team. So what would you recommend to a company in that position that really genuinely cares, really genuinely wants to not just portray an image of diversity, but actually live it, but maybe finds itself struggling to actually make a change?
Let me ask you this quick question. Deep down, what do they want to have happen? Do they want more employees, diverse employees?
Yes. I think that's the core of it, right? As a company that is trying to do business globally and succeeding in doing, I mean, it is a reasonably successful company that does business globally, but I think that it's important. It was important to them, and I think it's important to any forward-thinking and ambitious company to be able to speak to the plurality of human experience, right, and to be able to relate outside of the narrow sphere in which they exist geographically, right, and to be able to bring in talent wherever that talent might be from and retain that talent, because they want to hire the best people, not just the people who, you know, happen to feel comfortable with the culture they've inadvertently grown.
Right. So let me just say this right out of the gate. It's not easy, right? I mean, and I've said this numerous times. It's just not easy. One thing I will say is, I would say find, and this is the thing that I try to do, is try to find a partner, right? It could be an organization or a group that you can at least partner with. Now, let me tell you why. That partner, let's say it's an organization, let's say it's DivInc, or let's say it's Notley Ventures or whatever, can be part of your committee, if you will, or they'll meet with you to understand the challenges and everything else and start to make some better connections to help you identify the talent that you need, because it's going to be hard to find that talent, and some of that talent is going to be somewhere else. You need to try to convince it to come here. The other piece is, so I have a name for you. One good name I have for you is Kelly Newman, right? Come to me afterwards. So she's new with Notley Ventures, but she's an HR specialist, and she's on a mission right now to help companies address the talent acquisition and retention piece in a very innovative way, right? And Kelly and I have talked, and I'm telling you, she's coming in with an innovative thought process. But I think that partnership and understanding what is it you're trying to do, how we're going to do it, and then let's see if we can put some things in place for the executives to do as stepping stone pieces, and start there, right? But find a partner, because internally it's going to be just hard. Step outside the realm a little bit and start working with others, whether it's us or whatever, whether it's Kelly or somebody else. Just start working with them on a regular basis. I can tell you my experience being here at Capital Factory, the way some of these Black Tech Summit, Latino Tech Summit, Women Tech Summit happened was as a result of dialogue between members of my team and a couple other people who happen to be people of color in the Capital Factory team. Yeah. And they come up and say, okay, yeah, that's a great idea, that's a great idea. Now they're doing it on an annual basis. Now we gotta look at it a little bit more deeply entrenched with the culture, right? But they've made those strides, right? But it starts there, right? So that would be my recommendation. I'm gonna get you hooked up with Kelly.
Thanks.
Great. Jason.
So I had a question around expectations. As you know, I'm a mentor and angel investor also, and I find this is true just in all of my deals and interactions, and I would imagine it's probably even more relevant for Div Inc., which is there's a culture in Austin, but even more broadly than that, around entrepreneurialism, and it's a cool thing to do, and everybody wants to be it. And there's a lot of startup porn, and people, listen to every podcast by Gary Vee and all this stuff. But I get worried with a lot of the entrepreneurs that I meet in terms of setting expectations appropriately. You mentioned that sometimes you'll meet African-American entrepreneurs, they sort of are mad that you don't write them a check just because, Yeah, exactly. And I run into that with just all kinds of entrepreneurs that sort of expect that just showing up with a good PowerPoint is enough. And I see a lot of people that get all amped up on this, startup porn, and they make really dangerous decisions around emptying their personal savings account, taking out a loan, all of these things, because there's a whole ecosystem that's sort of cheering them on and telling them that they can do this and we can all be successful, without a real reality check that the vast majority of us are not going to be successful at this, and especially the first time around, and that they really have to be thoughtful about the risks that they are kind of taking personally. So I don't know, do you guys spend time sort of setting expectations that, don't drain your bank account because Gary Vee is telling you, you just need to work hard and kind of bet it all on black?
No, that's a great question. We do spend time with folks, letting them know, here's some, you may not work through, if you can't get past this point, it's better just to figure out you can't get it and then let it go, come up with something else, right? Or we have stories that, we share where people have been in business for 3 years and just couldn't get to that next level. Go talk with them, right? Because it will happen. So we do within the program, they have people come in, experienced founders, serial founders that talk about their first quote unquote failure and what happened with that. And so we have people coming in sharing stories. Like the guys from Favor came through and they were telling us a story when they were sleeping up in, shacks and attics and, driving homeless in cars and whatever. And it's pretty hard to imagine that, right? When you got two guys who are just getting, acquired by HEB. All you see is, dude from here to there. I'm like, oh no, they had a rough ride and almost a patch where they had to go down and they, came back up. So we do share those stories. To your point, though, I was in Houston this morning at the CEO round table, and they had this pitch competition. I wasn't a judge, so I just let me check it out. And this is probably the second or third time that I've been up there, and what I saw was a lot of founders who had truly small businesses, like lifestyle businesses, that were pitching as though they were startups, right? And so I thought, okay, so I watched all the pitches go through, and I'm just like, okay, that was nice, that was good. But there's no startups in here, right? They're small businesses they're acting like startups. And I'm a little bit concerned about that as well. I'm like, this is not, fun and games, right? Then I had a conversation with an individual. So they pegged me as sort of the guy to talk to about, getting investment funding. So the conversations were really, really interesting, about, equity and, do I give up equity? One guy was like, well, I self-funded up until this point, and, I'm not looking to raise right now. I said, okay, well, that's good, because you need to go build your product and get some traction before they even talk to you. And oh, by the way, who's on your team? You don't have a team. Well, that's going to be tight. And I said, by the way, when are you looking at raising funding? He said, in the summertime. I said, oh, okay, so let me break this down to you. Earlier, I had made a statement that a lot of entrepreneurs, African-American entrepreneurs, Latino, try to raise funding too early. So I said, well, let me break this down to you. You want to raise money by the summer. You need to start now. And I said, but let me break this down further for you. If you start now, you're way too early because you've got no customers, no validation, no team. So to my point earlier I made to you, you're too early. He said, and I said, it's going to take you 6 to 9 months to raise any money. He said, why is it going to take so long? I said, well, let me ask you this. I said, do you know any investors today? He said, no. I said, so you're going in cold, completely cold. He said, yeah. I said, okay, well, let me ask you this. Would you give me $25,000 if I came up and pitched you the very first time for 10 minutes? No. Okay, well, how many times do you think it would take for you to convince me to write you a $25,000 check? He said, well, maybe, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I said, okay, there's a process called due diligence. Okay, so I had explained due diligence to him. And he was like, sitting there like, okay, so can I have you as a mentor? and I, so that conversation, that's where some of them are. Smart guy and all that kind of stuff. But I'm like, dude, don't spend another penny until you validate that this is something that people actually even want, right? And so I was just like, wow. So there's so much talent out there with so much, they don't know what they don't know. And I'm not sitting here saying I'm the big guy, but that's what I see. And I'm like trying to figure out a way to help, not just to make all these people think they can do it, but give them at least the tools and the resources to understand what this process is all about, right? Or alternatively, go work for a startup. Go do that. Yeah, you won't get paid every 2 weeks. live that life for a minute. You know what I mean? You know, not getting paid for a minute. You got equity, you know, but that's a great point. And there's, I mean, really, there's so much talent out there. There's so much desire, but there's a whole lot to be, you know, reality that needs to click in. So I definitely agree with that. Definitely agree with that. What else? Yes. Right here.
I think there's also a lack of belief within the African American culture where there are some great entrepreneurs out there, but the culture they were brought up in didn't teach them to believe in entrepreneurship, and they don't even consider it. How do you see you guys making an impact in that, in the culture?
Yeah, so it's a really great question and a great point. You know, like I was saying earlier, there's a lack of knowledge and experience with not necessarily entrepreneurship, but high growth startup entrepreneurship, right? Because we've been entrepreneurs all our lives, right? I mean, the first female billionaire, right? Madam C.J. Walker, billionaire back in the day, right? Before our parents were born. So we've been doing entrepreneurship for a while, but this high growth entrepreneurship is a different ball game. But what we've seen also, and many of you may or may not know this, but many African American and Latino students, even today, are first generation collegiate students. I don't know if you guys knew that. A lot of them are first generation in the year 2019. First generation. 2020, 2019. One.
No, I was saying my own daughter.
Oh.
First in my family line to graduate.
First generation, right? And so for them, it's go to school, get a job. Go to school, get that really good job. And so entrepreneurship doesn't resonate. On the other side of the fence is entrepreneurship means I have my own consulting firm, or I have my own, shop that sells whatever, and it's just them, i.e., the 2.6 million businesses that don't have employees. That's the other side of entrepreneurship. Now, granted, we have a whole lot more today in terms of the startup community, but how do we open the doors, open the minds to students, young ones? So we got to get to the colleges, high school, middle school, K through 12. We got to inject ourselves in there. One of my personal challenges is I would love to do more of that, but I only have so much bandwidth. So I look for partners that are focused on working with, young students, college, high school, whatever, and then try to participate in those and share that knowledge and try to inspire students. I speak at UT quite a bit, St. Edwards, and a little bit at HT. Want to do more at HT, but we have to inspire more and give them the visibility. But at the same time, we got to be real with them, right? I'm able to share my story and say, look, I went to go work for 20 years, and then you can step out and go be an entrepreneur. But if you want to do that, save some money, put some money to the side, and then when you have that brilliant idea that's just eating at your gut, then you can go pursue that on your own power, right? And so you tell that story, and I'm all for that. If you can go make $80,000 to $100,000 or more over a 15, 20-year career, and you do right by saving money, you have all this experience, you have all these connections, go. I'll be here when you're ready. I may not be here, but you come here to get that connection where you can go build and grow your company. So we have to do more of that. And I see more entrepreneur programs coming up, across, obviously in Austin, it's big time. I heard today, and I validated, I didn't know this, I don't know if you guys know this, University of Houston Wolf Center for Entrepreneurship is the #1 undergraduate entrepreneurship program in the United States. I didn't know that. #2 was Babson. I was like, oh, shoot. I don't know what University of Houston is doing, but obviously they're doing an awesome job up there. So it was pretty fantastic. So anyway, we got to do a whole lot more. But to your point, we went through 2019, 2018, 2017 classes. I think we count on one hand how many African-American students participated in that brilliant entrepreneurship program. Out of probably, I don't know, they probably had 30 in each class. So out of 120, probably 5. We gotta do better. We gotta do better. Same thing on the venture side, right? UT has a great venture fellows program. We've gotta get more folks on the financial side as well, being investors and things of that sort. So we gotta hit all sides of that ecosystem. Mentors. Do you know how many African-American mentors startup mentors are in Austin? Probably 5. 2 or 3 of them were probably brought out by DeVink. Probably 5. Right? I mean, we need a whole hell of a, there's some serious talent here. How do we get that talent into this space? Right? How do we get that talent into this space? That might be something your executives can do too. Right? How can they make themselves available? So anyway, hope that answers the question. Yeah. You had a question back there?
Well, kind of tying off what you're saying here, you mentioned in 2014 there wasn't a critical mass of the angel investment here in Austin. It's 2020. Has it gotten better?
In terms of diversity, and yeah, I think it's gotten better. In all honesty, I think more of the leaders are actively, there are more leaders actively talking about it, and I think I would honestly say there are more leaders who are actively trying to do something. To the point over here, it's hard, so, people can get frustrated. I know when I came onto the scene, Jason Seat said something to the fact like, we've tried some things have worked, and some things have not. Almost as though they were ready to give up. You know what I mean? Not because they didn't care, but they didn't know what to do. Yeah. And so, but I think it has gotten better. I want to say one of the reasons why is I have to take my hat off to women. Women have really, they have a strong voice. And so at least the gender diversity, right, and the LGBTQ diversity, that has really stepped up. And then it really, I think we're doing our part to say it's okay with this, ethnic diversity. Let's bring it all into the fold. So I think it's gotten better, which is why I made the comment sincerely that Austin really has some interesting dynamics I really believe that they can take the lead if we can get everybody rolling. Yeah. I really believe that. I think other cities are not moving as fast as we are. I do know Houston's trying to build, right? And if Houston builds what they're building, their demographic naturally is diverse. Leadership versus, I don't know where the leadership is, right? But I think Austin has a unique position. I think really, because of the demographics here, if Austin can do it, that is like a playbook for other tech startup communities. It'll be a playbook, because you have a predominantly well, there's a heavy Latino population here in Austin, but the leadership is predominantly white, right? And so if you can get predominantly white, low African American, high Latino, 50% women type, we can make it work here. It'll be really interesting. And I can tell you right now, there are quite a few, you could probably back me up on this, quite a few African Americans who are moving from their metropolitan cities to Austin because of entrepreneurship. Because of entrepreneurship. You just moved? See, there we go. She just moved from Chicago, so we're gonna hook her up. So welcome to Austin. And I think, I think Divin can help with that, and we want to. So we'll get more folks to move down here and more talent. We can do some really outstanding things, Last point I'll make is these corporate executives, man, that's an untapped community. It's an untapped community. I can tell you my experience at Dell, right up the road on 35. I had no clue what was going on in the startup scene in Austin. I had no clue. And so as I talk to my African-American peer leadership, they are clueless about the startup scene here. Clueless. Likewise, I'm sure all the rest of the executives as well, right? So how do we get them to participate more? Because some people say, oh, Austin needs more executive leadership in the startup community. Some people will argue, yeah, we don't need no more, we just need them to come out and play. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's what I believe. That's what I really believe. We're moving in the right direction. Some want us to move faster. Some are saying, we're just too slow, but we're moving. We're moving in the positive direction. That's my sincere answer.
Awesome, thank
Cool.
you. Thank you so much. You have another question?
Not necessarily a question, I just wanted to
Okay.
impress him for his time and you for putting this on. My name is Damon as well, so I just wanted to.
Word to that.
And I just wanted to touch on something, Mark, was it? Justin, I'm so sorry, I apologize. I work with Ty Lopez, so, if anybody knows who Ty Lopez is, he's one of the biggest, social media people out there. He's kind of, on a level with, Gary Vee, Grant Cardone and that. And so what I do with him is, I do anything from, customer, positive customer experience, customer retention, maintaining the brand image, because it is a personal brand, although he does have, various brands as well and businesses and stuff like that. But a lot of what I do, which it does take a huge toll, because just speaking to different solopreneurs and entrepreneurs and just trying to, connect with them on a deeper level to really understand what they really want out of this entrepreneurship journey, and just really dig deep and see, who they are as a person, their personality type, their mindset that's involved, because that's what it truly entails is, the mindset that you have in that current moment, because, it's definitely something that not many people talk about, and just being in the trenches, for a company like that, is, speaking to that amount of entrepreneurs on a day-to-day basis, it's really difficult, for a lot of people out there, and just like you were saying about the Gary Vee, like go out there and do, I think honestly, every big, entrepreneur on social media definitely, has good advice, has, good evergreen content that anyone can learn from, but it definitely is conceptual to the person who's listening, because I can't tell you how many times I've, sat on a phone call for 4 hours with someone, and, it's just like Gary Vee says, hoorah, hoorah, while you're listening to me, and then what are you gonna do when you get off the phone call, We can create, this actionable plan and get you going in the right direction, as far as where you're gonna start, how to set up your Facebook business account, you know, running Facebook ads, Instagram ads, you know, building a business, how to set up an LLC, do you need an S corp, like, you know, just anything, everything from building a business from scratch. There's definitely that barrier for these entrepreneurs and solopreneurs to get that knowledge that they need, you know, and not only just the knowledge, but just having the right mindset too. So to me, it weighs heavily on the mindset aspect of it, and yeah, it's, you know, it's really great. I think, you know, what you're doing is pretty awesome, and
Thank you.
honestly,
Thank you.
I kind of just jumped into this, and you know, I was like, I have to come to Capital Factory. I haven't ever been here before, so I'm excited to be here. Nervous to talk, of course.
Thank you.
Not used to talking in front of a bunch of people, but yeah, I do appreciate it, and you know.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you. I'm going to share just last two things. One, if you know of entrepreneurs who are looking, you know, promising entrepreneurs, they're trying to build their businesses, that maybe they're ready for an accelerator, we have our applications open now for our next cohort, which is April 1st. Applications are open now, so if you know anyone, tell them to go ahead and apply, or come and find me, get my email. I mean, I can tell you guys my email. It's Preston@divinc, divinc.org. You can tell them to reach out to me, we'll talk to them. So April 1 is the next cohort. And the other thing is, we'll have a community happy hour, and I'll share that with Damon so he can send it out. But our community happy hour gives you an opportunity to really meet some of the founders, meet some of the mentors, and just get to know some of the DivInc family. If you want to become a mentor yourself, that's a great time to come and just meet and be part of the community. It's drinks, it's easy food, it's just laid back, you know, networking and just kicking it. And then, so that'll be coming up probably in February. And then March 5th, I'm not soliciting, but March 5th is our annual fundraiser event. I don't look at it so much of as a fundraiser. It's called the Champions of Change Awards. And what that event is basically recognizing individuals in the Austin community who are driving great DEI initiatives for the Austin community. So as part of just coming out and celebrating and recognizing who these individuals are, it also helps us in terms of our fundraising efforts. Last year we had it at City Hall, about 300 people attended. I will tell you without, you know, really bragging, I didn't know what to expect because that was our first one. And it really kind of blew us out of the water in terms of the vibe and the feedback that we got from people who attended. And, you know, one great story we had out of that was we had a venture capitalist, white guy, who attended. And he shared with one of our board members. She's like, yeah, I was there too. What did you think? He said, well, quite honestly, I was kind of uncomfortable. So I've never really been the minority in the room before. And he said, but as the evening went on, I got it. I actually got it. I get it. And so now I'm going to be working with DivInc more so I can make a difference. And I said, if that happened just as the pure, you know, process of the evening. It wasn't anything. There were a lot of white guys there, by the way, but I guess he didn't just see a room full of white guys, so he immediately kind of like, oh, shoot, you know what I mean? And I say, oh, that's kind of odd, because that's what I feel every day, you know, but not the same feeling because we're already used to it. But that was his first time. Dude is like 50-something years old, right? He's not a 24-year-old VC. He's like 50-something years old. And that was the first time he's actually ever been in a room. But now he gets it. So to your point, are we moving in the right direction? He has stepped up big time this year. You know what I mean? So I welcome you guys to come to that event. It's just an awesome overall event. The mayor will be there and all that kind of good stuff. So March 5th, community happy hour, and we wrap up. We're good. Thanks, guys, for really coming. It was awesome conversation. Really awesome.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good.